People are adjusting to the government doctored CPI numbers. Remember, they said, oh, don't worry, guys, food is only up 5%. What Yahoo believes that food is only up 5%? Nobody believes that. One of the most requested things that we ever get is about groceries. Remember that a lot of people might have trouble paying for their luxury home or their fancy car, but when it comes to food, I mean, food is something that is so basic, everybody needs it. And when you start taking food away from people, my goodness, things get ugly really fast. Remember, they say that civilization is only 9 meals away from chaos. I can tell you for myself, it's probably like 2 meals away from chaos. But I'm just telling you that once you take away people's food, now you're really hitting home, right? Everybody deserves to have some food to eat for them and their family. Now, today, the Canadian government hauled all of these CEOs of the grocery stores right in front of their committees, and they are blasting them. Now, I could tell you, I watched a lot of this. I have never seen something from the public like this. Just levels of hate, comments of going bananas, people saying tax the hell out of them, shut the companies down, privatize them. So I understand that when you start taking food away from people, man alive, does it ever hit home? It really, really hurts, right? I think so. But we have to dig into it a little bit more because we know the prices are high. They're ridiculous right now. But why? Who did that? Do you think right now, I want you to tell me, do you think right now that it's the CEOs of the companies that are doing it? So let's get into it. I got some things to show you, and I'm very curious where you're going to end up. And I don't think you're going to be at the same position I am. You might be at where I'm at, but I mean, you won't be where you are right now. You're probably going to think about it a little bit differently. So, grocer CEOs need to be transparent about why food prices are so high. And Freeland is the Deputy Prime Minister of Canada, and she is also the Finance Minister. Chrystia Freeland says that CEOs of Canada's largest grocery store chains need to be transparent about the recent rise in grocery prices. Now, I want to say two things about that. Remember, I am not red. I am not blue. I'm not conservative, liberal. I don't care. I follow green and I follow businesses. First of all, it's a slippery slope when they start saying everybody has to be transparent about everything they do. Now, you know me, I preach transparency all the time, but it's a slippery slope when they start saying that all companies now have to be transparent of what their prices are. Now, of course, if prices go high, we can always shop somewhere else. But is this some kind of like grocery store mafia? Are they all on the same WhatsApp group and they're all doing the exact same thing? So the finance minister is there. Now, the CEOs are presidents of Loblaws, Metro, Empire, and they operate Sobeys, Safeway, FreshCo. So that's a lot of different stores. But I keep asking everybody, how come the most expensive grocery store in the country is not there? This is Whole Foods. Now, they're an eco-minded chain with natural and organic grocery items and housewares. Why were they not there as well? Because their stuff is really expensive. I always say it's like if you can find a cookie and they say that this was blessed by a monk and kissed by a unicorn, and now it's $200 for a cookie. You know what I mean? They're the most expensive. Now, they are good. They're all organic. Everything is like fair trade, but you have to pay for it a lot. The price is there. They want a kidney and an arm and a leg just to be able to afford it. So they didn't bring them up, which I found interesting. But they're saying that grocery prices are up 11% compared to a year ago, double the overall inflation rate, which was 5.9% this month. Now, you guys know that they heavily doctor that number about what inflation numbers are. So we can't trust that. So this whole doubling based on our voodoo math already, that's not correct. The CEOs absolutely have a responsible to be transparent with those prices. Okay. So I love that she's talking about transparency. Okay. We're going to get back to that because if you are being transparent, you should be very transparent, even as a government, about why this got here. Remember, they're looking for a scapegoat. They have to find somebody to blame. So this 5.9%, I would challenge anybody that is out there, please, any of you, tell me if you've only seen your grocery bill go up 5%, because I don't know anybody who's had 5% increase in bills. But the government that's what they're saying. The prices are only 5.9%. So are they gaslighting us? So what is it? They want to know when prices are going down. prices are not going down. And they said, we're going to be putting tough questions to them. This is the biggest responses we've received from the public. Of course, when you start cornering people about food, I understand that. But this is another article on now. The Canadian grocery stores are testifying before Parliament and they're reaming them out. This is what I really don't like. First ever grocery code of conduct, enhancing transparency, predictably, and fair dealing. Yeah, I don't like that because it insinuates, number one, that all the grocery stores are doing evil things to you. And I don't think that's the case. Remember, a lot of these grocers, they don't make their ketchup. They don't make their French fries. They don't make the pizzas. They don't grow the vegetables. I mean, they're all coming from overseas, from Mexico or some other far-flung corner of the earth. So they just buy the stuff and have to mark it up and make a profit on it. Like, they're not the ones supplying all the stuff. So they also are subject to all these huge gas prices, the huge costs of stuff that's coming in. That's a big thing to remember. So I know that we're all looking, we just want food prices to go down, right? This is all that we want. But there's more to it than that. And this is why I say we have to get into it a little bit deeper. This is the big reason. Please look at this. This is Canada's money supply. If we look just since the 2020, it's an explosion of money printing. This is the money supply. How much money they printed. An explosion of money put into the markets. Unbelievable. Also, if you look at our federal debt, remember, this federal debt has doubled just since 2020. It's now 1.2 million. My share is $35,000 just for Canada. But wait, there's more. I live in Ontario, and in Ontario, I also have a $32,000 bill. Now, this is per person. This isn't per worker. So technically, I owe a lot more than that. Now, what I want you to do, this is the reason why money is going up. Huge amounts of money printing, huge amounts of debt that is being added on. And I ask you, who prints all that money? The governments do. It's the governments that are printing the money and causing massive inflation. It's not this mythical Fugazi. What does Matthew McConaughey say in that movie? It's no matter. It's like pixie dust. It's not that it's this imaginary thing. If there is more money chasing fewer goods, inflation. And so who printed the more money? We have to be able to at least understand where the cause of this problem is coming from. Now, in real capitalism, in real businesses, just let's say one Yahoo grocer decided to jack his prices to the moon. What would happen if he did that? Well, everybody would leave that store and go get all of the stuff at the other store, right? So that company would go out of business and then everybody would shop at the other stores. That's what would happen. If grocery stores were making a killing, then you would see grocery stores popping up on every corner, which wouldn't be such a bad thing, right? We would need more of those stores. The only problem that this could come from is if, let's say, all 10 grocers all got together and then they said, we're all raising our prices in tandem, in lockstep. Similar to all the countries printing the same amount of money in the past couple of years, huh? I always say they're on the same WhatsApp group. So if these guys were on the same WhatsApp group and they all did that, that's called price fixing, and they can go to jail for that. If governments do it, they call it policy. If grocers do it, price fixing, you go to jail. It's also kind of funny, right, guys? All right. So I want to show you something else I think is very, very interesting. And I think it's going to blow your mind. So this is the money supply. So when we were looking at the money supply growth, it went from $1.86 trillion to $2.3 trillion. That's a lot of money printing. Woo! So that is a main supply of why the inflation has gone up. Now, we're going to do an example here, and I want you guys to work with me, okay? I'm going to get you to do some math in your head. Let's just say, for example, there is an $800,000 of, you call it whatever you want, okay? $800,000 of yogurt that they bought. Just let's say it was something similar to that, okay? $800,000 of yogurt. All right. Cool. Now, let's just say they're going to turn around and sell it for $1 million to people like me and you who are going to the store and buying it. What they're left with is a profit of $200,000. Now, you guys, I know they're going to pay for a whole bunch of stuff, right? They got to pay for heating, the building, labor, electricity. I know that, but just let's try and keep things simple. So they have $200,000 of profit on a $1 million of sales, and $800,000 is what they paid for it. Now, this is what we're going to assume, 50% inflation, because this inflation right here, this is how much the debt has gone up since 2020. 50%. That's how much more we're in. Okay. So just let's take that as if it was 50% inflation, because that's like the money supply that went up and the debt. So just let's do this for example. So people are mad that they made $200,000, but let's just say that everything in the world is 50% more money. So we're going to do an example here. Let's take this down right here, and we're going to take this down, and we're going to take the profit down. And we're going to pretend now that everything is 50% more. So the 800,000 would turn into 1.2 million, right? This would be 1.5 million, right? And then this profit of 200,000 be up 50%, which would be up to 300,000, 300 grand. So if this was the case, right, and we had 50% inflation, and just let's imagine it was steady, and it's not always. Just let's imagine for a second that everything from electricity was 50% more, labor was 50% more, taxes were 50% more. Let's just say everything was even. If this was the case and they printed 50% more dollars and this turned to 1.2, this turned to 1.5, this went up to 300,000. If all things were being equal, this would be the exact same amount of money. $200,000 in 2019 would buy the equivalent of $300,000 worth of stuff today. You guys have seen the prices go up. I bet you for $200,000, you could have bought 200 loaves of bread, 200,000 loaves of bread. And here this year, you'd be able to buy 200,000 loaves of bread. This is what I mean. It could buy the same amount of stuff. But in this instance, they're making the same amount of value. But when you look at it, you can say, well, 200 and 300,000 means that your profits are up 50%. And they're blasting them for saying, you guys, the profits are up 50%. But are they really? When we adjust to inflation, it is not 50%. It's not. And that's the problem. People are adjusting to the government doctored CPI numbers. Remember, they said, oh, don't worry, guys. Food is only up 5%. Food is up 5%. Okay, what Yahoo believes that food is only up 5%? Please tell me. Please, I want to know. Nobody believes that. Everyone believes that food is up higher. So you can look up Loblaws. It's a publicly traded company, and go look at their quarterly and yearly results. And they're going to tell you what money they made, up what percentages, e-commerce. They're going to go into their operating income. This is earnings before insurance, taxes, blah, blah, blah. You can go and read all this. I did. Their profits are not up what you think, you guys. And this is why I always say we got to dig into it a little bit deeper. We have to find out more of those answers. We cannot survive just by reading the headlines on the news or just the article. We got to dig a bit deeper. Because remember, let's say Toronto, where I live, there was 2 murders this year and only 1 murder last year. Well, they could say, well, it's a 100% increase in murders across the country. But it may be a very safe city. But that headline gets a lot of clicks on it, right? So we just have to dig into things a little bit deeper so that we understand it more. Now, I am not saying that I'm glad that food is this high, but now that we are removing fertilizer from the chain, which increases food production by 3 times. So either we got to figure out how to find 2 more planets, that we can grow food on, because every acre of land is only going to give us 30% of the food that we used to have. So how is the world going to get by on only 30% of the food? I ask you that, if we get rid of all the fertilizer. You and I know that's impossible, so that would mean a lot of inflation. Just look at what's happened in Sri Lanka. They tried to get rid of all of their fertilizer, and now everybody's starving to death. No crops, no food. We don't want to get in that same situation. Do we want to get rid of oil and gas and everything? Of course, but we have to have something to move to. Do you know what I mean? So food prices are probably going to be high for a very, very long time. I don't see them going down at all. Russia and Ukraine, huge food providers, and they're both going offline. Big, big problems. And so as these problems are going to compound, we're probably going to see a lot more money printing from the governments, as governments are in a lot more trouble, which means high inflation moving forward. Now, as you know, we are experts when it comes to real estate. And how does this all play into real estate? Real estate is going to be taking some serious, serious hits moving into the future. Let me give you an example of why we're seeing some big problems, okay? I'm going to show you how the banks are looking at food problems as it relates to housing. Very important for us to understand these boxes, okay? So we're going to draw 3 boxes, and this is how banks look at you as an individual, okay? So these 3 boxes are going to be taxes, number 1, and taxes are generally about 33% of a person's average salary. Now, what can you change about this? I can already tell you 0, okay? If anything, it's going up. Okay, they also want you to use on your home. This is what they want you to do. Now, this is whether it's rent or whether it is buying a house. They only want you to spend 33% on your home. And the rest, this is the other that the banks look at. And the other has, they put in food, your gas, then your insurance, and all the other things, daycare, whatever else that you have. Here is the problem moving forward. This is every single place that we go. We saw earlier when we were giving the example that the home payments are up 40%. So instead of the average price taking 33% of your home, of your average income, instead of that, we know it's up 40%, you guys. So how does this tail go out? It's now almost 50% of your income is required to live in Canada. Here's the crazy part. In Toronto, where I live, they now say it takes 110% of an average income just to pay for your home. You got to laugh at that, you guys. 110%. Well, how am I supposed to pay for food and gas and everything else? But this is the model right here that you're looking at, where your home is worth 1/3, other is worth 1/3, taxes are worth 1/3. Taxes are staying the same, but food prices, mega, mega, mega problems in food prices right now. So what's happening with food prices? You guys and I know that it's going way up. Gas has gone up overall since 2020. Insurance is going up. Everything is going up. So this bucket, they're not going to allow us to continue with the prices that are going up. They're not going to allow us to continue to use this number, 33% for your other category. This category very easily could become 40% or 45%. So if they're allowing 33% here and 40% here, they're knocking down the availability of this 33% after that. If you add those two together, they're going to be knocking this down. So if that goes down, right, you may only be allowed to spend 25% of the home. But remember, we were saying right now it's about 50%. So they would have to react and only give you half the amount of mortgage, which means that last year in 2022, right at the very beginning of 22, they were willing to give you 5x your salary, 5 times. So you made $100,000, they would give you $500,000. Okay. Let's just say that they would give you a $500,000 mortgage. But in 2023, where we are today, now they're only willing to give you 2x or 200K. They're only willing to give you half the money that they did before. This is where we're seeing real estate get affected so badly, is what people are willing to give you as a mortgage. We don't live in a country in Canada, the States, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Korea, like you name it, where you could just buy a home for cash. The prices are so high because we have to get credit. If credit is not available, which it is not very available right now, home prices are coming down. So we've seen a 50% reduction in home sales, but we've only seen in the major cities over 1 million people, we've seen about a 25% drop. This is going to continue for the rest of the year. This is a lot of bad news, right? But the good news is we're going to see some fantastic opportunities coming ahead. I think the future is very, very bright. This is a good time for you to start studying macroeconomics, understanding real estate, and how 90% of the millionaires in the world were made millionaires through real estate. So I want you to take the time and go learn about things. This is Ray Dalio, a really good college degree book. Read this book by Peter Zian. Amazing books. 2 of the best books of last year. I recommend them to everybody to get an idea of how the world is working. You have a fantastic opportunity coming up to you. If you are under 25, my goodness, the world is your oyster. The next 2 years is going to dictate the rest of your life. You're going to see deals that you've never seen before. So if we're prepared, we're going to be able to buy things that we never thought possible. Remember, inflation just relocates money from people who are not good at using their money to people who are good at using money. That's what I want for you. I want you to be one of those people. Anyway, I wish you the very, very best. If anything that this taught you, I want you to think that the future is bright. There's a lot of beautiful things that can happen in the future if you play your cards right. Number 2, please be eternally curious. Ask questions. When you see a headline that invokes very visceral response inside of you and it makes you upset, makes me upset, food prices are so high, it's hard on all of us. But there are amazing opportunities coming forward for us. It's hard for us, but really, really good things that are coming. Remember, what we're going through today is just a bill that has to be paid for what they did in 2020 to 2022. This is where the world that we're living in. Can't really change it right now, but there are going to be huge benefits in the future. We're very, very fortunate in some of the countries, if we're looking at France or the Philippines or Canada or the United States or Australia, we make food. So we're going to be okay in some countries, and some countries are going to have a tough time. So we in these countries got to be able to make more food so we can export more to the world because everyone is hungry. Anyway, you guys, I hope you have a fantastic day. Hope that this gives you some real value. And we always have to go back to the world's largest asset class, bigger than the bond market, bigger than all the stock markets. It's real estate. Everything goes back to real estate. All interest rates, it's the most sensitive portion. And it's where the majority of people's wealth is in real estate. And so this is why when you see something about groceries, we have to be able to tie it back to the world's largest asset and the world's largest federal bank. So we always have to be tying it back to see this is happening over here, but how does that hit the big picture, the big kahuna in the room? And so continue to ask questions. Be curious, my friends.